Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. At AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on Friday morning. Brian Wilson, Larry O'Connor, and boy, we got a great show for you. Coming up at 7:37, our friend Brett Baer from the Fox News Channel. Then we'll be joined at 8:07 by General Stanley McChrystal to talk about his book and also talk about things that are going on in the world, Benghazi, what happened yesterday in Algeria, and of course that's something we're going to talk about right now.
With Eli Lake. He is the senior national security correspondent for Newsweek. Oh, that's sad. Not for Newsweek magazine, for Daily Beast. There is no Newsweek magazine anymore. Forgive me, Eli. Newsweek Online. Right. All right, Newsweek.com.
Newsweek Global on the tablet.
All right, Newsweek Global. Thank you, Eli. Tina Brown will send the check now. Well done. Eli Lake joins us now. And Eli, if you could, just to sort of start things off, can you sort of give us an update and the latest on what's happening in Algeria?
Well, right now we're still trying to get information from the Algerian government as to, the extraordinary thing here, the Algerian government did not tell any other country, when that they were going in this kind of commando raid.
Yeah, and just to remind the listeners, there was an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group that took a bunch of national civilian hostages representing, I think, 6 or 7 different countries at a natural gas refinery processing there in Algeria. This is in retaliation for the Algerian government backing up the Mali government, where there's a lot of turmoil in Mali, and then the Algerian government just sent these helicopters in, and from all the accounts that we get, Eli, is it true that they just basically went in with all guns blazing?
Yes, and in fact, most people don't think that the Algerian government made, I don't want to say most people, but the national security tips that I've talked to say that they made a calculation that the facility itself, this natural gas facility in kind of in the desert, was more important than the lives of the hostages, because they were concerned that the kind of leader who arranged this, Mokhtar Belmokhtar, was potentially had access to explosives and could have destroyed one of the country's most important national assets.
We always want to be careful because, this is a very difficult situation. Apparently very hard for us to get good information out of that location. So it's still sort of a very fluid situation. But the United States was in conversations with the Algerian government, one hears, and they said, look, we've got people standing by. Can we go in and help you in this hostage situation? And the Algerians said no, and then gave absolutely no notice as they sent in the helicopter gunships to lay waste to the place.
Yeah, that's what's looking like what happened. And that fact, by the way, is all the more extraordinary when you think about since the 1990s there has been extensive training, a U.S. training of Algeria's military. There has been a pretty huge sort of intel-to-intel relationship there. Algeria, at this point, is probably one of the most important countries in northern Africa, at least for AFRICOM, the Africa Command. And all of the money, all of the investment, all of the training that has been invested in the relationship with Algeria at the moment like this, when it really matters, did not really count. Bouteflika, in the end, decided to kind of do this on his own.
We care about this story, of course, because there were Americans among the hostages. What do we know about their fate?
At this point, I don't know. We don't know, I don't think.
Eli,
I know that I can tell you, I was at a post-holiday party, I guess, last night with a lot of media types. And those of us who were covering it were all saying, it's irresponsible. We don't want to put out the numbers or reports that we're getting because there is not a lot of information right now.
Yeah, and there are so many conflicting. The latest one that we had from the wires was that there were 30 hostages and at least 11 of the captors that were all dead. But Eli, I hate to be in a position where we're relitigating the 2012 election, but I remember vividly during the foreign policy debate where Governor Mitt Romney actually made a very specific point about the turmoil in Mali and that this was a major issue that was brewing and bubbling and gurgling and something that we needed to pay more attention to. And I remember he was roundly mocked by the president's people and by the supporters of the president about that, saying that he was out of touch where the real problems are. Is this kind of a redemptive moment for the governor's take on what was going on there?
Well, even more so. I mean, what you have is the slogan, "General Motors is alive and Osama bin Laden is dead," and Al-Qaeda
is decimated, as we were told.
Right, and this administration has said, hey, we've defeated Al-Qaeda, and that's important not just from a political perspective. I think it's important from a policy perspective for the Obama administration, because they are winding up the war in Afghanistan right now, and I think that as much as they have, as he has embraced the secret, stealthy drone war in Yemen and Somalia and lots of other places that he doesn't like to talk about against Al-Qaeda, he doesn't really like that, and they really don't want to kind of have that role. In fact, I think Obama believes that he's, the president, as he's transitioning America's role in the world, from one that, was something of an imperial presence to something of a post-imperial presence in some ways. Well, I think that a lot of people in the Obama administration see the world that way, and the Al-Qaeda being so potent in North Africa, whether it's Benghazi, whether it's the coup in Mali, or now whether it's this kidnapping and hostage situation in Algeria, are very significant holes in that narrative.
Like Benghazi, we sent drones, but what I'm hearing is that the drones got there too late to see the attack. What are you hearing about the drones and what they may or may not have seen?
It's a good question. I don't have visibility into that right now. But it's more than drones. The reason that the United States spends the money to try to train the officer class of countries from the Philippines to Egypt to Algeria is because when you have a crisis situation like this, it helps us figuring out from a human-to-human relationship
who's in charge, who to talk to. Right, yeah.
Well, and given...
And this time, despite having all of those kinds of things with Algeria, it did not pay off.
All right, so Eli Lake is our guest from the Daily Beast. He is the senior national security correspondent. And let's narrow down here from our side of this equation. After Benghazi, we were told that the buck stopped with Hillary Clinton during that whole process. Hillary Clinton herself said that, the Secretary of State. So in this process yesterday, if we were having talks with the Algerian government and they said, no, we'll handle it, and then what happened, who on our side of the equation is sort of the point person on these kinds of discussions?
I was told that all of this is being handled out of the National Security Council.
That's what I think.
Okay.
My sense is that John Brennan is in the middle of all this.
Well, that'll be interesting considering...
John Brennan, by the way, is probably the most important guy in the administration on these kinds of things.
And John Brennan's about to go through a Senate confirmation hearing. That should make it even that much more interesting, yes?
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot of stuff, I think, that are going to come out with John Brennan. He's the one senior official that we haven't heard from regarding on Benghazi. And I think the left is going to go after Brennan because he was a senior CIA executive when the enhanced interrogation program was developed at the CIA. And I think people are going to go after Brennan because there's still lots of basic questions that people don't know about the scale and the rate of our drone program and where it is and what how many civilians were killed and stuff like that.
Well, Eli,
a lot of questions Brennan's going to face.
We got to leave it right there, and thank you so much. Always good to have your wisdom brought to our show. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Eli.